Did your parents teach you this phrase? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but... Yeah. It didn't take me long to learn that that wasn't true. Words can heal, words can comfort, words can inform, words can challenge, but words can hurt. Words can be misunderstood. And not only the words, but also the tone of voice in which those words are delivered. When I was in college, there were some girls in a neighboring dorm who I was friends with would say to me, "My, you have such big hair." Now, this communicated a reality because I had long, thick hair and it was permed. Remember, ladies, the perm look? This was the 1970s. So if you had long, thick hair, it was big. Now, those words were delivered in this sweet tone of voice, and I was never quite sure whether this was a compliment or not. It's kind of like the expression that I've learned since I've moved to Maryland. Bless your heart. Are you really blessing me, or are you dissing me with acceptable language? See, the book of James contains these instructions about daily life. And James names things that he's most concerned about. And one of the things that he's concerned about is the power of human speech to both build up and to destroy. And as we heard read this morning in verse 19 of the first chapter of James, it reads, "You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen and slow to speak." Quick to listen and slow to speak. Because words make a difference in how we relate to one another. Because words reveal our motivations and our intentions and our beliefs. And we heard in the gospel reading from Mark that Jesus was concerned not about whether we washed our hands or not, but Jesus was concerned about what was in our hearts, because what's in our hearts often comes out through our mouth. And it becomes a reflection of who we are. And we have to think about how our behavior mirrors our words, or is our behavior contradictory to what we say? Because what we do is a mirror of what we believe. I'm sure that many of you have spent the last few days watching the funeral services for Senator John McCain. I have really been struck by the words that the participants in those services shared. They shared words of healing and hope and challenge. Healing words not only to the broken hearts of Senator McCain's family and friends, but also to our nation. Senator McCain admitted that over the years his words were not always helpful or healing. He was among the few politicians who admitted when he was wrong. This did not make him a weak person, but a man of strong convictions who expressed them, but also understood the power of what he said and what he did. The power that he had in his office to heal our nation, and he also was aware of how pained human speech could be. And he was most concerned in these years about how speech was tearing our nation apart. Well, there were many things I admired about Senator McCain, but one of the things that I most admired is that he never lost faith in our civic responsibility. He never lost faith in the ability of Americans to make a difference and to change what was not working. And the letter that he asked to be read upon his death, I thought was so poignant because it expressed his hope that we as Americans would accept the challenge to consider how our speech and our behavior was affecting one another in these days. According to James, we can't bring about God's vision of a just and peaceful world through revenge or evil speech. That only spreads more dissatisfaction and more trouble. James doesn't tell us, though, that we have to swallow or ignore our anger, because there are times when our anger is at something that is unjust or unjust, and we need to take that moment to stop and to listen and to pay attention and then to speak. This is hard work for some of us, and I will admit that it's hard for me, because some of us learn, and I'm one of those, that I learn out loud by processing my thoughts, by talking things out. But I'm married to someone who's the opposite. So when Ken processes things, it's very internal. And so I have to be patient to find out what he's really thinking and not to assume what his silence means. But in our marriage, we've also learned that I can say to him, Ken, you don't have to fix this. I just need to say it out loud so that I could hear it and start to process it myself. I was one of those people in class who always raised their hand, like right away. And I have to watch myself even to this day at a meeting, because I just know that what I have to say is going to contribute to the world becoming what it ought to be. But I learned that if I'm always the one raising my hand, if I'm always the one talking, it doesn't allow space for others to be in the conversation. I was honored in 1995 to join a group of women from the United Church of Christ to travel to the United Nations meeting on women in Beijing, China. And as part of our preparation work, we were required, this was the UCC and the Methodists and the Presbyterians who we traveled together, we were required to attend a cultural sensitivity training. And I will never forget this training because it was so powerful as a reminder of the gifts of each one of our cultures that was coming to this event, but also what the barriers may be. The presenter shared how North Americans, especially those from the United States, and Europeans, especially Germans, are quick to talk, and not so quick to listen. And that when you're in an international setting, especially with persons from Asia, they are less quick to speak. And they also honor the elders. So they will give the time to someone who is older no matter what. But if we always were jumping in with our North American, European ways, we would lose the power as well as the contributions of our sisters from around the world. And it was so simple, first of all, to be aware of this, and then just some techniques, like before you talk a second time, is what you're going to say the second time really going to add to the conversation? Did somebody else already say that? And count to 10. So if sometimes you see me going like this, you know I'm trying to overcome my nature to talk and give the space. But count to 10 and listen to what is being said. On the 27th of this month, I invite you to consider taking off a day from work and coming to a community-wide event that's called Difficult Conversations. We're going to gather in our new community room with elected leaders, business leaders, nonprofit folks, citizens of our community to learn strategies and techniques for how we can talk with one another about difficult topics. It starts with an understanding of brain science and how our brains biologically have been attuned to see anyone who is different or any opinion that's different as a threat. And that's part of the dynamic that we see happening in our world today, is that somehow we're seen as weak if we have a difference of opinion, rather than just say there's a difference of opinion. And if you and I have a difference of opinion, you're not going to club me. But biologically, that's how our bodies react. So if we can come to an understanding of how we respond to that, then we can begin to find the language and the means to talk with one another about these difficult issues that are facing our world today. Our community will be stronger if we can find ways to sit at the table with each other and come from different places. But as President Obama said yesterday about John McCain, they always were on the same team. We're on the same team. We just may have different ways of expressing this. And that's not to squelch anyone's concern about how someone is being treated, but the world is not going to change by each of us going off in our own little groups and silos. We have to find ways to bridge these divides and find some ways in which we can express our concerns about the life and health of the community with people who have another way of looking at our life together. We need to find ways where we don't have to give in to cultural pressure to tear one another down in order to make our point. Some of you've heard people say, you can be so right sometimes that you're wrong. We have to learn. We have to learn some of these techniques in a forum in which we can trust one another and build up that trust. I don't need to tell you that we're living in a time of sticks and stones. I bet in your life an hour doesn't go by when you don't hear some kind of nasty, mean comment about a group of people or about someone else, or maybe even directed at you. What comes out of our mouths can make a difference. And we as people of faith have a responsibility to make a difference in the world. We need to have courageous conversations and speak truth to power. We need to have courageous conversations and words and speech to challenge the words that demean and defile. Courageous conversations are needed as we reach across what divides us to create communities where all people are cherished, honored, respected, and loved. Amen. May we join our hearts in prayer.